Hello folks, and welcome to a special Friday edition of Formula One Paddock Pass from Spa-Francorchamps with team bosses. We thought we'd bring this to you today because there's been so much going on over the summer break, particularly on the driver market, and we wanted to bring you the driver boss views of what is happening and what their hopes are for the future. So let's start with those two gentlemen there, possibly the biggest story from the summer break and arriving here in Spa, that Daniel Ricciardo will move from Red Bull Racing to Renault. We're going to start with Cyril Abiteboul, because let's be honest, the relationship between Red Bull and Renault has over the last few years not exactly been wonderful. It was so glorious, of course, all of those world championships together, and then as the turbo era began, it disintegrated to the point where now Red Bull Racing moves to Honda engines next year, and Renault have nicked their star performer. So we'll talk to Cyril first, and then to Christian, just about how that deal with Daniel Ricciardo came into being, how they found out, and how they reacted. It hasn't been an easy relationship between Renault and Red Bull over the years. Securing Daniel's signature right at the end, is that the final coup de grace? Did that give you some satisfaction as a final slap in the chops?
No, it's not. It's not that. Frankly, it's not. Trying to summarize this decision, summarizing both Renault's decision and Daniel's decision to just a small little pissing contest between Christian and myself would not be a right way to portray this development. I hope it's going to be part of one of the great decisions in Formula One history, because we know that history of Formula One is full of good and bad decisions, and we've had examples without having to comment and to name a few of the bad decisions. So I hope it will be among the good one. So that's where my focus is on right now. It's a fantastic news, but it's also a news that we are not taking lightly, because it's a news. It's a decision that is obliging us to deliver a better car, a better chassis engine to what is one of the most charismatic driver probably on the grid right now. So we all want him to success, to perform. We all want to see that smile. We all want to see some showy on the podium. So that's what I have in mind rather than anything else with Red Bull.
It's a massive coup, and it was a massive shock for us. How did you manage to convince him to leave the sort of the safety net, if you like, of Red Bull and come to join a team that is still on the rise?
Actually, I think we didn't do anything special. There is absolutely no magic. We've been honest, we've been transparent. I think the people he's met have said the right thing, in the sense that we are not trying to pretend to be an organization that we are not yet, trying to pretend that we will give him a car that we will not have secured as of yet. He knows that he's coming for a long-term project. He's taking a project at a certain level of maturity, and there is still more to come. His contribution will be more than just driving a car, and that's already something big to drive a car, but he will be more than that. He's coming with lots of experience and will be driving the charge for the next step, which is to try and bridge the gap to the top team. We didn't try to lie. You've seen a group of very simple people who are focused on doing what we like doing, which is racing, without politics involved, without bullying with timing for a decision, without having to put his signature on a contract by a certain date. We accepted the fact that he was the one that was desired, and full stop. We took this situation the way it was, and I think this is what he liked, he accepted. Maybe also the fact that we don't want to take ourselves too seriously. We are serious about racing, we are serious about the project, but we don't want to be seen as a serious organization.
It's a question I put to him yesterday. Obviously, he's achieved all of his victories with a Renault engine in the back, but he's also had a lot of heartache as well. FP1 this morning, another example of... It's not...
Unrelated to the engine, sorry.
I believe it was an injector.
No, it's a loom driving the injector.
Well, then I will retract the FP1, but stand by. He has had some heartache with a Renault engine in the back. How do you ensure that doesn't continue? How do you ensure that it's only roses ahead and sweet-smelling things?
I ensure nothing. That's exactly what we've done. We've been honest. We've said that we are not going to suddenly become an organization that we are not, but that we are working extremely hard in improving first our organization, the level of our resources, the talent, streamline the organization to make it a bit simpler, more agile, more accelerate the pace at which we are bringing upgrades to the engine and to the chassis, and that he will be an extra element of motivation to do exactly that. But no, we've not lied. We've not said that we will suddenly undo all the things that we've done. But let's focus on what's good to come.
You said on many occasions you could see no reason why Daniel would leave Red Bull Racing, and I think the majority of us agreed with that. What reason did he give you?
His reasoning was very simple. He just felt that he wanted a change of scenery. He needed a change in his, he turns 30 next year, and I think he felt he just wanted to take on a new challenge. There was nothing financially, duration of the agreement, technically, standing within the team that he was unhappy with, and I think he just felt that he wanted to try something different. And I think at that point, when you reflect on this, we've been discussing renewal since February. Winning Monaco wasn't enough, winning China wasn't enough. It's become more and more drawn out, and I think if your heart's not in it, then he's obviously been looking at something different. Initially it was either Ferrari or Mercedes. Those options closed to him, so he's chosen to go this route with Renault, and all we can do is wish him the very best of luck. It's been great having him in the team. He's driven some fantastic races for us. It's been great to be able to provide him the opportunity to demonstrate his talent, and wish him the best for the future.
I know how much you're going to miss him, and you wanted to give him a car that could win him races and the championship. And on occasion he's been let down, not so much by the car but what's in the back. Does it hurt to have lost him to the provider of what cost him those chances ultimately to have achieved more with you?
Well, that's his choice, isn't it? I mean, he's been at the forefront of the frustrations. Since he joined the team in the V6 era, that was at the point that we've had a performance deficit to our rivals with engines. So he's got his own reasoning for choosing Renault. He must have belief in what they're doing, and all we can do is wish him the very best of luck.
Let's move on. Fernando Alonso, words exchanged. Did you offer Fernando Alonso a drive in Monaco and again in August this year?
I'm not quite sure where all of this has come from, because no, we haven't offered Fernando a drive. Fernando's a fantastic driver. I think we're all going to miss him in Formula One next year. Flavio, his manager, reached out after Daniel's announcement, but it was very clear that it wasn't going to be an option, and certainly no contracts or offers were mentioned.
You said you've now sent him an email to apologise. Is that true?
There's been no apology email. I had an email from his manager about a comment that was made in a podcast, which I said I would look to clarify, which I believe I just have.
Why do you think he's saying those things?
Fernando, he's that's Fernando Alonso. That's been, that's who he is. He's a phenomenal driver, and we're all going to miss him, and some of the games that he plays as well.
Cool. Pierre, excited to have him on board. He seems such a great prospect, a great talent.
He's a fantastic talent, and he's done a great job in the Toro Rosso so far this year. He's developing really well. He was the obvious candidate. We discussed already internally the what-if scenarios, and he was always the number one contender. So, like Daniel before him, or Sebastian, or Max, he gets that graduation now from Toro Rosso, and we'll see what he can do on the big stage.
Fascinating stuff from both of those guys. Now, from Christian Horner, and we finished by talking to him about Pierre Gasly, to Pierre Gasly's current team boss, Franz Tost. How good is Pierre? We've heard what Christian thinks. What does Franz think? And also, how are they going to replace Pierre Gasly and potentially even Brendan Hartley? Because if we're honest, the Red Bull Junior program is not as littered with drivers as once it was. Dan Ticktum sits at the top of their pile but does not have enough super license points to enter Formula One. Are they going to have to take a driver from elsewhere? Or are they going to have to do exactly what they did with Brendan Hartley and go back through history and find a driver that was once a member of the Red Bull Junior team, but because of the way the Red Bull Junior team works, was let go far too early? You've had Seb come through your team, Daniel, Max. How does Pierre rate? What kind of a driver are Red Bull Racing getting?
As all the other drivers, he's a very high-skilled driver with good natural speed, good technical understanding, and I must say, from the very beginning onwards, when he joined Toro Rosso, he at quite a high level of working and understanding, and therefore I'm convinced that he will also do a good job at Red Bull Racing.
I know this probably isn't your choice, it comes more down to Helmut, but who comes in next year? I know you guys want to have it decided, certainly one driver by Monza. Do you know in which way you're leaning?
Oh, we will see. Yeah, Red Bull will decide, and we are discussing a few names, and I'm convinced that we'll make a correct decision.
It's difficult though, because obviously the pool of Red Bull drivers isn't as large as it once was. Dan Ticktum is the highest up that level, but he doesn't have enough super license points to race in Formula 1 yet. Are you going to have to try to do something with the FIA to resolve that situation, or are you looking aside from Dan?
No, first we will look within the Red Bull family, and later on, if there's no solution, on the side.
There's some talk that you may take a driver from McLaren, either Stoffel or maybe Lando Norris, obviously with the issue about James Key and gardening leave and all those kind of things. Might we see a McLaren driver with you next year?
Don't think so.
Ooh, okay. Can I name some drivers that were formerly of the Red Bull Pro? Because obviously you went back to get Brendan. Alexander Albon, might he be somebody that you're looking at for next year?
No.
He's not? That's a shame. He's doing really well. Are you looking, as you were with Brendan, at people that were once within the Red Bull program and had slipped out?
Look, we will announce it soon. Then you have the solution.
A decisive no from Franz Tost on Alexander Albon, which I find a shame, given that he is doing a cracking job in Formula 2 this year, competing against the likes of George Russell, who's Mercedes affiliated, and Lando Norris, who's McLaren affiliated. Was once a Red Bull young driver, was let go, but I think is doing a supreme job this year. So I think that's a real shame that if Alexander Albon isn't in the running for that Toro Rosso seat. Who else might it be? If we look down through the junior ranks and drivers that used to be at Red Bull, I don't know, Sebastian Buemi, be great to see him back. Jean-Eric Verne apparently said that he's been approached by a Formula 1 team to come back next season. Would he go back to Toro Rosso after the acrimony with the way that ended? I'm not sure. Maybe Antonio Felix da Costa, never got his F1 chance, would love to see him in a Red Bull sponsored car of some sort. I don't know, I don't make the decisions. Anyway, the other big story this weekend. When we did Paddock Pass yesterday, these guys didn't have a name. They do now. It's, what is it? Racing Point, that's it. Racing Point Force India. It's been a bit complicated. When we left here last night and the news came out that they had a new name, we understood that they had to set up a new entry and therefore would lose all their points, start again. And that is precisely what's happened. Force India, stricken from the 2018 results. Racing Point Force India back in with 0 points. So they've got 9 races to try and make their way up through the Constructors' Championship and fight their way past the likes of the McLarens, maybe, certainly the Saubers and the Williamses and teams like that to get themselves into a decent place in the standings. What we've learnt today, however, is that all of the teams unanimously agreed that they would be able to keep their Column 1 payments. Traditionally, if you're a new team and you start in the sport, you don't keep those payments. You have to start from zero, which is an amazing kind of concession for the teams to make, particularly the smaller teams that don't have the money. I'm thinking particularly of Williams, who are over here. And of course, all of this is tied into the fact that Williams' driver Lance Stroll, his father, is the one that led the deal that saved Force India. And has kept them on the grid and is now their big investor and their big great white hope for the future. So we're going to talk, first of all, to Otmar Safnauer from Racing Point Force India. Should we just keep calling them Force India? It's easier that way, isn't it? Force India. Otmar from Force India, who's now their CEO. Bob Fernley has gone. Contrary to what some reports saying that Lawrence booted him out, as I understand it, he was already off when Vijay Mallya was leaving the team. The timeline I'm not entirely sure adds up, as has been reported. And we'll also talk to Claire Williams, obviously about what's going on for their team as regards Lance, his potential departure into next year. So a big story this weekend. Force India, Williams, Otmar and Claire. It's great news coming back here, obviously, for the team we left, and there was so much uncertainty. How happy are you that things have been resolved as they have?
Yeah, very, very happy, elated. And for all of our employees, 405 of us, administration is always an uncertain process, and I'm pleased. I'm pleased for everyone and for the team and for the fans as well, and for the sponsors, and that we can continue. And thanks to FOM and FIA and their support, and for enabling the new entry and allowing us to continue to race.
There have been rumblings about Lawrence Stroll's potential interest in the team for some time. When did you guys start talking?
Well, I mean, he was speaking with the shareholders, I think about a month ago, to help out with the finances. And then it became clear that that wasn't going to happen for various reasons. And then once administration happened, because Lawrence was in the process for a month or two already speaking with the shareholders, I think it was a logical next step for him to also make an offer to the administrator. And it just so happened that he was his bid was the one the administrator chose. So maybe it was the highest, I don't know.
How will his, and indeed the group that he represents, their investment in the team, how will it change the day-to-day running of the team?
Yeah, so day-to-day, we're not going to change. We're still going to stay the bunch of racers that we are. The ethos and the DNA of the team won't change. I think what will change is we'll have some, we'll be on a better financial footing, and we'll be able to do and buy some of the performance things that we've always wished for. So hopefully from that regard, in the short term, we'll get an upgrade in Singapore, and in the midterm, we'll start putting some of the infrastructure in place that we need, such that we can improve performance in the midterm, which is next year.
This was all sparked off, obviously, by Sergio taking the decision that he did to put the team into administration. Has he, in securing the future of the team, also secured his place with the team for next year? What's the situation with drivers, and also as regard Lawrence and Lance?
Yeah, so those two things aren't linked. We got to thank Sergio, because we were marching down the path of insolvency before he came along with administration. And administration is much better than insolvency. Insolvency, we wouldn't be here. So for that, we got to thank Sergio, but we're not going to thank him with a seat. We're going to thank him with cards. But we're well on the way with talking to Sergio. We like him, not for that reason, but for the fact that he really performs on track. He's got another podium this year. Does really well. He works well with the team. So for that reason, we're soon going to go off and hopefully secure his services for the future.
And Lance?
No discussions yet. So
honestly?
Yeah, no, I haven't talked to Lance yet.
Okay, but Lawrence, is that part and parcel of the deal? Because everyone takes that as read, that if Lawrence is getting involved, that means Lance will be somewhere down the line.
Lance is coming. I would think that's a likelihood, but like I said, we haven't, none of that. I'm sure he's got contracts with Williams that they have to sort out that, I'm not a party to. There's a CRB that you have to take care of. There's all sorts of stuff. That's not to say it can't be done, but it's just to say it's not that easy.
Difficult start to the year for Williams. Will it get better in the second half?
I'm not sure it's going to get a whole lot better. I think we're realistic enough to know and understand where we are right now, and the fact is that we've got some clear weaknesses that we're still trying to work through, and that's not the work of a moment, unfortunately. But we're plodding through it as we have to. We're taking some pain, and we'll probably still will towards the rest of the season. And really, it's got to be about next year and focusing on bringing development parts this year in order to make sure next year's car's in a better place.
Next year looks like it's going to be fairly hard. You guys obviously losing Martini, and with the news over the summer break of Lawrence investing in Force India, are you concerned about the team's financial stability going forward?
No, I'm genuinely and honestly not. I've said enough about Martini. I think their contract has come to its natural conclusion, and we're comfortable with that. And as you would expect, we've been working really hard on our 2019 budget for the duration of this year, and we're in a good place with that. Lawrence wasn't an investor in the team, he wasn't a shareholder in the team, and really, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference him leaving us. It's a driver leaving us probably at the end of the day, and that's it. And that happens year on year in every team, so I'm not concerned.
So a driver probably leaving you at the end of the day. Is it at the end of the year or before that?
At the moment, we're focusing on this weekend. Lance, as Lance said yesterday, he's in the car this weekend, and that's our focus, to make sure that we do the job that we need to do this weekend. And who knows what will happen in 2019 or the remainder of this season. We'll have to wait and see.
Finishing up today then with that chap right there. Gilles de Ferran, his first official media duties for McLaren since being brought on a couple of races ago to be sporting director, or whatever his new role title exactly is. It's all changed at McLaren this year. The great IndyCar champion, of course, what are his thoughts on the driver situation at the team, as of course they lose a two-time world champion but have at their disposal now a fantastic talent in Carlos Sainz and a big choice to make over who that second driver will be into 2019.
Fernando is, I think, one of the greatest drivers in Formula One history. You know, the guy is an outstanding talent, a passionate man, a great racer, and a huge asset to McLaren and to Formula One, quite frankly. So, yes, we will miss him for sure, you know, and he's part of the family. And but that's the way the world is, you know, things keep moving on.
And you got Carlos on board, very talented young guy with a lot in front of him. How excited are you to start working with him?
Very excited. Well, we've been looking at him for a while. I think he's shown very well against some illustrious teammates that he's had in the past, even though he's quite young and still developing rapidly. He's already, next year will be his fifth season in Formula One, and I think he fits the bill for us. You know, we had an opportunity to sign him when he became available, and we jumped on it. And I guess what we try to do is either to sign world champions or potential world champions, and we certainly looked at Carlos that way.
And you've got a nice headache for the second seat. You've got Stoffel, you've got Lando, potentially, apparently, Esteban Ocon may be in the mix as well. Each one of them you could look at as a potential world champion in Formula One in the future.
Absolutely, and that's why Stoffel is driving the car today. You know, so but we haven't made a decision on the other car. I really can't comment on any other conversation that's going on, and when we know, you will know.
Okay. Is there a chance that we may see a switch in drivers this year, or is it next year that we're looking at?
No.
No switch this year?
No.
So that is your lot from Friday Paddock Pass. Lots to talk about, lots to dissect as Formula One comes back from the summer break. Can't wait for the rest of the weekend. Hope that clears up some of the question marks going into the second half of the season. But as Otmar's pointed out, still a few question marks that need to be answered as well. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, folks. But from Paddock Pass on the Friday, that's your lot.